I met Claire 2 years ago, and from the start, I thought she was different. Not in some dramatic, love at first sight, kind of way, but in the way where you just click with someone. She was funny, smart, had this way of making everyone around her feel like the most important person in the world. And with me, she always made me feel like I was her person. We moved in together after a year, and everything felt right. We had our little routines, movie nights on Fridays, cooking disasters on Sundays, because neither of us could really cook, lazy mornings where we just stay in bed and talk about random stuff. I'd had relationships before, but nothing felt this solid. She was my best friend, and I was sure we were building something real. Then, about 6 months ago, things started shifting. At first, it was subtle. She'd stay late at work more often, get lost in her phone a little too much. I told myself I was overthinking. Relationships go through phases, right? People get busy, but the changes kept piling up. She started pulling away. Conversations that used to flow easily became shorter. She wasn't as affectionate. The little things that made us us, like those stupid Sunday cooking disasters, just stopped happening. And then, the worst part, she started lying. It wasn't even about anything big at first. She'd say she was working late, but then I'd see her tagged in someone's Instagram story, out at a bar. She'd tell me she was too tired to hang out, but then I'd hear her laughing on the phone in the other room. I didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid, insecure boyfriend. So I ignored it. Told myself it was stress, or maybe I was just reading into things too much. But deep down, I knew something was off. Then, one night, I found proof. She was asleep next to me, and her phone lit up. Normally, I wouldn't have checked, but something in my gut told me to look. It was a message from someone named M. It just said, "Tonight was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you." I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. I stared at the screen, my brain trying to find any explanation that wasn't the obvious one. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe it wasn't what it looked like. But when I scrolled up, I saw everything. Flirty messages. Late-night conversations. Plans to meet up. It wasn't just some random guy, it was her coworker. And it wasn't just harmless talking. It had been going on for months. I sat there in the dark, my heart pounding, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to wake her up and confront her right then and there. But another part of me, the part that had spent 2 years loving this person, didn't want to believe it was real. So I just sat there, staring at the messages, my whole world crashing down around me. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling like an idiot. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see were those messages. Every late night she came home tired, every weekend she suddenly got too busy to make plans. It all made sense now. By morning, I had 2 choices. I could pretend I never saw it and keep living in this fake reality, or I could face it head-on. I chose the second option. When she woke up, I was already in the kitchen, making coffee. She walked in, still half asleep, wearing one of my hoodies like she always did. For a second, I almost forgot what I had seen. Almost. "Morning," she mumbled, rubbing her eyes. I looked at her, at this person I had loved for 2 years, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't pretend everything was okay. "Who's M?" I asked, my voice steady. She froze for half a second. Just enough time for me to see the panic flash in her eyes before she quickly covered it up. "What?" I pulled out my phone, opened the screenshots I had taken, and slid it across the table. I saw the messages. Her face went pale. She didn't reach for the phone. She just stared at it, like maybe if she didn't touch it, it wouldn't be real. Jake, I held up my hand. Don't. Just tell me the truth. She swallowed hard, then looked down, like she was suddenly ashamed to meet my eyes. It's not what you think. I let out a sharp laugh. Oh, really? Because what I think is that you've been lying to me for months. She sighed, running a hand through her hair. I never meant for this to happen. That pissed me off. That's the best you got. I never meant for this to happen. Claire, you don't accidentally text someone like that. You don't accidentally sneak around behind my back. She bit her lip, and for a second, I thought she might actually start crying. But I wasn't in the mood to comfort her. Finally, she whispered, I didn't want to hurt you. I shook my head, laughing bitterly. Yeah. Well, congratulations. You did. She didn't say anything. She just sat there, staring at the table, like she was waiting for me to tell her what to do. Like maybe I'd tell her it was fine, that we could move past this. But I couldn't. I stood up. I need you to be honest with me, Claire. Was it just texting, or was there more? She hesitated. And that told me everything I needed to know. I grabbed my keys. I'm going for a drive. Jake. But I was already out the door. The twist I never saw coming. I drove around aimlessly for an hour, my thoughts racing. I kept replaying our conversation, trying to make sense of it. The hesitation in her voice. The way she wouldn't meet my eyes. The fact that she didn't even try to deny it. It was all so obvious now, and I hated myself for not seeing it sooner. I pulled into a parking lot and just sat there, gripping the steering wheel. My phone buzzed. I ignored it. Then it buzzed again. I sighed and checked the screen. It wasn't Claire. It was M. I stared at the name for a long time before finally opening the message. M, hey, I need to talk to you. It's important. What the hell? I didn't even have this guy's number saved. But I guess he had mine. That alone sent a bad feeling through my gut. Why would he be texting me? Against my better judgment, I responded. Me, what do you want? The dots appeared, then disappeared. Then appeared again. He was typing, erasing, hesitating. Then finally, M, it's not what you think. Please, just meet me. You need to know the truth. I clenched my jaw. Every part of me wanted to tell this guy to go to hell. But something about the message stuck with me, because Claire had said the exact same thing. It's not what you think. I didn't trust him. But I needed answers. Me, where? A minute later, I got an address. It was a small cafe a few blocks away. I took a deep breath, started the car, and headed there, my mind spinning the entire time. What the hell was I about to walk into? The cafe was nearly empty when I walked in. Just a couple of people sitting in the corner, lost in their laptops, and the guy behind the counter, who barely glanced up. And then, there he was. M, I recognized him immediately. His name was Mark. Claire had mentioned him before, just in passing. Oh, Mark from work said something funny today. Mark's the only one who actually answers emails on time. That kind of thing. I never thought much of it. Until now. He looked nervous. His leg was bouncing under the table, and when he saw me, he stood up too fast, knocking his coffee over. Shit, he muttered, grabbing napkins. I didn't sit. I just crossed my arms and stared at him. Talk. He finished cleaning up, motioned for me to sit, and after a long hesitation, I did. Then, without looking at me, he said, I think Claire's lying to both of us. I blinked. What? He exhaled sharply. Listen, man, I don't know what she told you, but I swear to God, I'm not the guy she's seeing. I felt my jaw tighten. I read the messages. His eyes flashed with something, annoyance. Frustration. Yeah, and I bet they looked bad. But I swear she's playing us. I frowned, but before I could say anything, he pulled out his phone and scrolled through something. Then he slid it across the table. I didn't want to look. But I did. It was screenshots. Texts from Claire. Except this time, she wasn't flirting. She was lying. She had told him I was distant. That I was working too much. That I barely paid attention to her. That we were, basically over, and she just didn't know how to end it. None of that was true. And then, at the bottom, a text from a different number. Unknown, we should probably stop texting so much. He's getting suspicious. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. Who's the other number? Mark shook his head. I don't know. But it sure as hell isn't me. And that's when it hit me. Claire wasn't cheating with Mark. She was using him as a cover. I sat there, staring at the phone screen, trying to wrap my head around what I was seeing. My first instinct was denial, maybe there was some kind of mistake, maybe Mark was twisting things. But the texts were right in front of me. Claire had used him. She had made me believe he was the problem so I wouldn't look for the real one. I finally exhaled and looked up at Mark. So, you have no idea who this other guy is? He shook his head. No clue. She never talked about anyone else, at least not to me. I ran a hand through my hair, my frustration boiling over. This is insane. Why the hell would she do this? Mark hesitated. I think she was keeping her options open. Stringing me along just in case. But I never touched her, man. I liked her, yeah, but I never crossed a line. She made it seem like she was done with you. I let out a bitter laugh. Yeah. Well, she sure as hell wasn't done. Silence. Then Mark tapped the screen. You could try calling the number. I clenched my jaw. The thought of hearing his voice made me sick. But I had to know. I grabbed my phone, typed the number into a caller ID app, and hit search. It loaded for a few seconds. Then a name popped up. And my stomach dropped. I knew who it was. I knew exactly who it was. I stared at the name on my screen, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. No. That doesn't make sense. I felt Mark watching me. Who is it? He asked. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to say it out loud. It's Eric. Mark frowned. Who's Eric? I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. My best friend. The words felt like acid in my mouth. Mark leaned back in his chair, rubbing his face. Damn. Yeah. Damn. Eric had been my closest friend for almost a decade. We met in college, went through breakups together, celebrated each other's wins, got drunk and had stupid conversations at 2 a.m. He was the guy I called when I needed advice. The one person I never thought I had to second guess. And all this time, he was sneaking around with Claire. The betrayal hit me in waves, first shock, then anger, then something deeper. Something worse. I had trusted him. I had vented to him about Claire when I started noticing the distance. And now I had to wonder, was he just sitting there, listening, while he was the reason it was happening? Mark must have seen the look on my face because he sighed. That's rough, man. I exhaled, gripping my phone. Yeah. It is. I had two choices. I could sit here, let the anger eat me alive, or I could do something about it. I chose the second option. I stood up, shoving my phone into my pocket. Thanks for telling me the truth. Mark nodded. What are you gonna do? I didn't answer, because I wasn't sure yet. But one thing was clear, Eric and Claire weren't getting away with this. I didn't drive home. I didn't even think about what I was going to say. My body just moved on autopilot, and before I knew it, I was standing outside Eric's apartment, my fist clenched so tight my nails dug into my palm. I should have waited. I should have cooled down, thought it through. But there was no part of me that could sit with this and do nothing. I knocked. Hard. A few seconds later, the door swung open, and there he was. Eric. My best friend. The guy I thought I could trust with anything. He looked surprised for half a second, then his face smoothed over. Oh. Hey, man. What's up? I saw it then, how easily he slipped into acting normal. Like he hadn't been lying to my face for God knows how long. Like nothing was wrong. That pissed me off even more. I didn't answer. Just pulled out my phone, opened the caller ID results, and held it up to his face. You tell me. His eyes flickered to the screen. He swallowed. And for the first time, I saw something crack in his expression. He knew. I exhaled sharply. So. You gonna lie to me again? Jake. Don't. My voice was shaking. Just tell me the truth. He hesitated. Then, finally, he stepped back, running a hand through his hair. Come inside. I laughed bitterly. You think I want to hang out with you right now? He sighed. Look, I know you're pissed. Oh, do you? I cut him off, my anger boiling over. You know I'm pissed. What gave it away, Eric? The fact that you've been screwing my girlfriend behind my back? Or the fact that you let me come to you for advice while you were doing it? He flinched, and that small reaction made something snap in me. How long? I demanded. Eric rubbed his face. He looked exhausted, like he didn't want to have this conversation. Too bad. A few months, he admitted. I felt sick. A few months. So every time Claire had worked late, every time she pulled away, every time I'd sat there wondering what the hell was going on, it had been him. I clenched my jaw. Why? He let out a slow breath. I don't know, man. I laughed, but it wasn't funny. That's the best you got. I didn't plan for this to happen. The same damn excuse Claire had used. I shook my head, my chest burning. You didn't plan it, but you sure as hell kept it going. Eric looked at me then, his jaw tight. Yeah. I did. I stared at him, waiting for an apology. Some kind of regret. But I didn't see it. And that's when I realized, he wasn't sorry. Not really. Maybe he felt bad that I found out. Maybe he felt guilty. But he wasn't sorry for doing it. I took a step back. We're done, Eric. He exhaled, like he'd expected that. Yeah. I figured. I turned to leave, but before I did, I said the one thing I knew would stick with him. You didn't just lose me. You lost the one person who actually gave a damn about you. Then I walked out. I didn't look back. I drove around for a long time, the city lights blurring past me. I wasn't sure where I was going, just that I couldn't go home yet. I thought confronting Eric would make me feel better. That once I said everything out loud, the anger would go away. But it didn't. If anything, it felt worse. I had lost two of the most important people in my life in the span of a few hours. And the worst part? They didn't even try to fight for me. Eric didn't apologize. Claire didn't beg me to stay. They had already made their choice. And now, I had to make mine. I finally parked in front of my apartment and just sat there, staring at my hands. My phone buzzed, breaking the silence. Claire. I hesitated before picking up. What? She let out a breath. Jake, Don't. My voice was flat. I was too drained to fight anymore. Just tell me why. She was quiet for a long time. Then, finally, she said, because I was selfish. I frowned. That wasn't the answer I expected. I knew it was wrong, she continued. I knew it would hurt you. But I did it anyway. Because I liked the attention. I liked feeling wanted. I gripped the steering wheel. So what was I? Just some safety net? She exhaled. No. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. And that scared me. I let out a bitter laugh. That's your excuse. You cheated because you loved me too much. She didn't answer. I shook my head. You know what? I don't care anymore. Jake. No, my voice was firm. You don't get to do this. You don't get to wreck everything and then act like you're the victim. She was silent. I exhaled. I hope it was worth it. Then I hung up. And for the first time that night, I felt something close to peace. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I was just done. It's been a few months now. I won't lie, those first few weeks were rough. But something changed when I stopped looking for closure. Some people will never give you the apology you deserve. Some betrayals will never make sense. And that's okay. Because at the end of the day, you don't need their guilt. You don't need their regret. You just need to walk away. And never look back.